We're going to have a look at some things that can go wrong in your early phase of growing your dahlias from cuttings and tubers. These here are the pot dahlia tubers, which are still putting out shoots, but the shoots are quite thin. Hopefully you can see there that those shoots are not nearly as sturdy as the early ones. And I've still been taking cuttings, but they are failing. So alongside the tubers are some of the cuttings I've taken as before in the plastic bags. Some more there. So we'll have a look at a couple of these now. So these are the healthy cuttings taken a while ago. This one was taken on 1st of April and we're now the 23rd, so 3 weeks. So that's okay, and we can take that out of a plastic bag now. It's growing, there's a nice growing tip there, and the leaves are healthy. Go again nice and healthy, so I think we'll let that go on into the next phase. But these, which I took 3 days ago from the thinner cuttings that I just showed you on the pot dahlias, and I think you can see that it's wilting. So this cutting is not taking up water sufficiently to keep the leaves hydrated. And I think the reason for that is that the stem is so thin that it's simply not up to it. And here are a few more that I took at the same time from these thin shoots. They were nice and sturdy when they went in, and they should have remained sturdy, but they're not because they can't take water up. This one again, taken at the same time. Is doing a little better, but still this leaf is wilting. So I've got a feeling that this one's got a chance. I don't think that one has, although we'll just keep it in the bag and keep our fingers crossed. And this is the last one we took on the day from the thinner shoots. Again, not too bad. There is some wilting there in this leaf particularly, but there's some turgidity in it, so that cutting is taking up some water. So is that one. I don't think either of those two are. We'll just put them all back in the plastic. And keep fingers crossed. They're quite sturdy for carrying round. I have had the odd one that's failed because the elastic band has given up the ghost. But in general, they're nice and handy for carrying round. Feel the weight to see if you think it needs any water. You very quickly get used to the weight of the overall cutting and pot, and you can check whether it's light and therefore in need of water. We're going to have a look at these single tubers which were planted just over 2 weeks ago, and we'll check how they're doing. I purposefully planted these in poor soil, poor draining soil, because I thought it might be an opportunity to show you what happens when Dahlia tubers go wrong. This little guy here is not doing so badly. Well, I can see the beginnings of eyes, the beginnings of shoots rather. So it's looking like this guy is all right. Let's have a look. Ah, well, you see roots already here. So that's in the name of education. Sorry to disturb the guy, but this tuber is doing pretty well. The roots always emerge from the bottom of the tuber there. It's a nice healthy tuber, nice and firm. And there are the beginnings of the shoots. So I'll put this guy back, with apologies for disturbing it. I'll give it a little drink to settle the soil around it rather than to provide any water for it. That's a cafe au lait. There are really a few tubers which dropped off the tuber clumps when we did the tuber planting, so rather than letting them go to waste, I thought I'd plant them up and see if we can demonstrate problems with tubers when you don't plant them in good soil. This one is friquelé, so we'll have a look at that. Right, we've actually got the beginnings of a rotting tuber here, which hopefully you can see. The base of the tuber is nice and firm, but the top is soft. And can you see if I squeeze it? Oh, I've burst it now. And there is a rotten tuber. Now I think that's happened, I provoked it. It's happened because the drainage was poor. So the tuber couldn't begin its process of physiology to put roots out and to put shoots out. Before it could do that, the elements got into the tuber, dampness, and fungal infection took over. So we'll dispose of that collection of soil. I don't think there's much danger of the organism, presumably fungal, infecting other things, because it's predominantly a problem with the conditions. So the conditions have allowed the fungus to propagate and cause disease. Let's have a look at another one. This is cafe au lait as well. Okay, so this guy's pretty good as well. There's the shoot, nice firm tuber, and we've got some roots. So 2 out of 3 okay so far, despite the poor soil. I think they'll be all right now. Once the physiology gets going and they start to put shoots and roots out, then they can usually protect themselves much better against adverse conditions. It's the tuber when it first goes in that's in a much more precarious state. Oops. So this is our last one. This one is fricolet again. You can see how poor the soil is. It's sort of formed almost a concrete mass. It no air getting in. It just looks not nice at all. So we'll have a look. There's our tuber, and you can see straight away how I can feel it soft and mushy, no growth, and inside is this just squidgy mess of infected tissue with a smell to it as well, rotten smell. So that's a goner. So 2 out of 4. But hopefully they serve the purpose, because in a way I was hoping they'd fail so that I could get it on video and keep it for posterity. Now the last thing I wanted to show you, to demonstrate, so to speak, is the difference between these cuttings, all of which are of the same plant, all of which went in at the same time, and as you can see there's a vast difference in performance for some reason. These were all the single tubers which we unwrapped about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, and did a test planting. And those which put shoots out, which were the majority, we planted on at that stage. So if you've been watching the other videos, you'll be familiar with that. We're going to have a look at, if you like, the best one, which is at the back there, and the worst one. There's one at the back there that simply hasn't put shoots out. And these two here that have put shoots out, but they're very small. So here are those 3 plants which I pointed out. They all had shoots on when they were planted, otherwise we'd have rejected them at the test stage after 3 weeks after planting. So they've all had shoots. This one has done really well. Hopefully you can see how good those stems are. Well, there's one stem is really good, and you can see how lush the foliage is. So that's the winner. This one, planted at the same time, has got some growth, but really a month after planting it's hardly much bigger than when it was planted. So for some reason this one is struggling. And this one seems to have given up the ghost because there's just nothing happening. There's the last year's shoot, stem, which we just keep popping up at ground level, and this shoot would normally appear from somewhere around there, where the neck meets the old mother tuber, and that's where we've made the cut. There is the tuber, which on the face of it seems it's nice and firm, but it's just sort of gone to sleep. So we'll have a look. You know, usually roots will appear first. I say usually because it does vary, and sometimes there's hardly any roots at all and the shoot's doing quite well. The tuber's not diseased as such that we can see. It's firm, it's light in colour, and on the face of it, it looks like there's every possibility that it will start to work, but there was a shoot, otherwise, like I said before, we wouldn't have planted it up, so it's obviously regressing, and I think we're going to have to say that's a failed tuber. We'll have a look at this guy. So let's have a look. Now then, I wonder what's going on here. We've got a shoot which is as old as that one. There are a number of leaves in it, but each one of the leaves is very poorly developed. And I think what we're looking at here is a tuber which is healthy enough, but as we sometimes do when prepping them, I've cut off the base, or there is no base there, and often that's because perhaps the base looks a bit mushy or something, or is damaged, and we cut them off at some level. And I think what we've done here is we've cut through where the roots would have developed, and that's interesting because it's certainly a technique that's used to cut the base of the tuber off. And I'm wondering whether I've just discovered something about how dahlias grow, so to speak. I wonder whether those there are the beginnings of roots that have then sort of given up. But it's obvious what's happened here is that we've got a tuber which is the eye has got going, and then it hasn't had the input from the roots, which is presumed, well, it will be water predominantly at this stage of development. Rather than food, it would be water. So I think that's going to fail as well because of that. okay. And that's all I've got for you today. So thanks very much for watching, and see you next time, I hope.